Listen to this episode if you feel uninspired with your content all the dang time. I hear this constantly. If you're sitting here saying, I sit down and I scroll for inspiration, but you still just don't know what to post. You scroll for an hour, maybe you spend an hour creating content, but it just doesn't stinking work. You've been making content for a while, but you kind of feel like you're at a loss of what to do next because nothing seems to actually produce better than the other. Or maybe it just feels like social media isn't working and maybe you have to go elsewhere. That is what we're talking about today. This is something I hear literally every week with my clients or, new people coming to me, things like that. If this is you, you will leave this episode with a little bit of a pep in your step and an action plan of how to actually fix this problem of feeling uninspired with content. This was actually submitted by one of you, my listeners, in our Small Business Cafe, which is our free podcast community. They said, Maddie, I am so sick of social media. I just never feel like it works. And I am so uninspired to create and never have any new content ideas. I am at a loss. Please help. I'm sure some of you out there absolutely can relate to this. And this is what we are diving into today. How are we fixing this problem? We're going to talk about frameworks. We're going to talk about common mistakes and misconceptions. And then we're going to dive into what you need to do instead. Before that, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to say hello. My name is Madison Page. Just in case you're new here, I'm the host of the Small Business Growth Podcast. I am a business growth specialist, and I work with product-based business owners to help their brands stand out and sell out so you can become that next household name. Every brand starts as a small business. And so I like to call this the Small Business Growth Podcast to help you turn your small business into a brand as well. There is one usually main reason that you don't have inspiration, you don't know what to say, is usually if you have no direction in your marketing, meaning you're looking at social media, you're scrolling other people's Instagrams to try to figure out what their strategy is, but you don't actually have any real direction yourself. We're going to talk about the 3 major foundational pieces that you need, as well as kind of like figuring out what a content framework really looks like for you as well. So first things first is if you have no direction, if I just say go and post marketing, go create content, go make some marketing. You're like, Maddie, I have no idea what marketing is. I've literally never marketed anything before. I don't understand how to do that. That is going to be very tough. If you've been in my world at all, I've said this analogy a few times, but this analogy is the speech analogy. If I were to tell you right now, you need to go give a speech, what would your first questions be? It would be, who am I giving the speech to? What does the speech need to be about? And like, what am I really talking about, right? If I was like, yeah, just go give a speech. And then you'd be like, well, what do you mean? Just an open-ended speech about anything? Yeah. Well, then you'd be like, well, who's in the audience? Who am I giving the speech to? If you still don't know the answer to that, that gets harder. It's the same with your marketing as well, is if you don't know who you're speaking to, what lens you're supposed to be speaking out of, and then what really makes you different, what your branding is, it's going to be really tough. Rather than if I sat down and I said, hey, you're giving a speech to kindergartners about confidence tomorrow, you would be like, oh, okay, sick. I can do that. No problem. You are ready, or you're kind of like computing of what you would say, how you would do it. It's through what lens are we speaking about? As well, if I were to tell you you're giving a speech about confidence to teachers, it's going to look different than who you would be speaking to kindergartners. Or if I were to talk to you about self-love as opposed to confidence, your message would change, right? It's the same with your marketing. That in the beginning, when I say, hey, you have to go give a speech, that's like me saying, hey, go sell your lip gloss. Go out there and sell it. And you're like, well, okay, but what do I say? How do I do that? Whereas if you have an ideal customer, you have a differentiator, and you have a brand, you basically already have this lens created of what you now need to say. This is why a lot of my clients come to me, and within the first week or two, they're starting to create better content because they start to basically have direction as to what they're even supposed to talk about. Instead of just saying, hey, I sell skincare, you're like, hey, I sell skincare that's natural for people that have super sensitive skin, and I'm selling it to your everyday mom all of a sudden you can be like, wow, I could talk about that all day. I could talk in so many different lenses about that one product. Or I sell gold jewelry. Hey, go sell your gold jewelry. That's what the equivalent of a lot of people is what a lot of people do, because 90% of people skip actually setting foundations in their branding. Okay. And so if I just say go sell gold jewelry, you're like, well, what am I supposed to talk about? Whereas if I say go sell gold jewelry, that is sweat proof to athletes. You're like, oh, sick. I can talk about being an athlete. I could talk about, showering in it. I can talk about, outfits and how to pick jewelry that works well for what sports. All of a sudden, again, you're kind of computing and starting to put this into buckets. You can start to clarify it. Uninspiration usually comes from one of two things. This is the first thing that it usually comes from, is that you don't actually have a direction as to where to really even go with it, right? And so, yes, that can be one thing. Now, the second thing is not having a content strategy or understanding how to analyze your content to see what's working better than the other. Because if you have those foundational pieces, you should never run out of content ideas. I literally could create 17 pieces of content a day and never run out. I have 400 podcast episodes out there, and I still post on Instagram every day. And it's because I can say a similar thing through different lenses. I can give different examples, and everything is constantly changing, that I can talk about different pieces of content because I know who I'm speaking to. I know what the differentiator is, and I know what my brand is all about. And I can kind of, move people through those different lenses. So the piece of this to the person that asked this question that kind of points out that you might not have a strategy much is that you say, I just feel like none of it works, which tells me you're being consistent. If something isn't working for like 6 to 8 weeks, you need to change how you're doing it, right? Like if I was going to the gym for 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, and nothing was working, I wasn't feeling better, I would say, all right, we need either a different plan or we need a different root cause, right? Like if I'm doing something, if I'm working on a project, if I'm trying to learn how to embroider and it's 8 weeks in and I still suck, I'm going to say, all right, I need a new YouTuber. I need somebody else. I need a course. I need something else to teach me how to do this. I need a better plan. Same thing goes for marketing. If your marketing isn't showing signs of working within 6 to 8 weeks, we have to change how we're actually doing it. So I guess a question that I would have for you, I have a few here that I want to ask you, is first things first is when I talk about those foundations, without those foundational pieces, your content will always be broken. And so if you don't have an ideal customer, a differentiator, a brand, and really understanding what makes your business unique and your message unique from everybody else in your industry, if you don't know how to make yourself an industry of one on your own within this really crowded industry, your content will always be broken. So that cart has to come before the horse here a little bit, right? We got to put that first, because without that, your content is just diluted, it's boring, and it's speaking to everybody, and it's never actually going to land with anybody. Hey, I'm jumping in here for 30 quick seconds for those of you who are loving the podcast but wish we could dive deeper into every episode topic together. I have actually started a completely free podcast community called the Small Business Cafe for exactly this purpose. Inside this community, we dive deeper into every podcast episode, provide bonus resources, and actually host completely free monthly coaching calls with me, so you can get your questions answered. Plus, you get to submit your questions for our Friday coaching session episodes and connect with other founders too. If you have been loving being a part of this podcast and want to connect with other brand founders, plus get extra support from me, click the link in the show notes below to join. And so my first question for you is, does your audience actually know those foundational pieces? Do they know your message? Do they know what makes you different? Do they know your values? Do they know who you're even speaking to? And if that is the case, that is your first step. The next one is if you had to increase your sales this week, what would you do? If you had to make sales this week because whatever, you had a really big bill you need to pay this week, what would you do? Do you have an answer to that? If your answer is no, then that's okay. But that's your answer, is that we have to analyze this. We have to understand what's actually working or not. If you do have the answer, we need to start doubling down on the things that are working. The next one is what content is actually activating people right now? That's one of the first questions that I ask a lot of my clients. What content that you are posting right now is actually activating people? And if you don't know which one of those, we have to identify that as well. We have to test other pieces of content. Next one, do you actually have growth happening, but you just aren't actually taking it to heart? This is something we do as business owners all the time, is that we see things happening, but it's not happening enough, or it's not happening fast enough, and we get upset about it, or we get bummed. We just tell ourselves it's not working, but is it actually working? And we're just saying that it's not. We have to look at our data and really see that. And then last but not least, do we know that this is actually a marketing problem? Because I have a lot of people come to me that says, hey, Maddie, I have a marketing problem, but yet their conversion rate on their website is 0.4%. That's not a marketing problem. It's a sales problem. We need to fix that at the bottom end of the funnel, because you probably have things there. Do you have, 5,000 followers? Do you have people in front of you? Do you have people going to your website, but they're not actually buying? It's not always a marketing problem. Just because your social media feels like is like the number one deliverable that you're doing and it's not working, just because it feels that way doesn't actually mean that that's actually the case. Most people are fed up with social media because their marketing seems to be not working. But it's usually not the algorithm. It's not social media. It's actually the content itself. Because even if it is a sales problem at the bottom, you have a low conversion rate. I change things in your marketing to increase that conversion rate. Yes, I can change things on your website and other things that way as well. But most of the time, it's not a social media problem. It's not an algorithm problem. I have people every single day that I'm talking to that we change this piece around, and then all of a sudden, their content starts to work better for them. All of a sudden, they have more engagement. They have more clicks on their website. They have more sales coming through. Why? Is because they've actually put a plan and they've actually put structure behind everything. You need these foundational pieces to make your messaging actually activate. And then we have to get your message out there in the proper way that resonates with your audience in order to make it happen. That is marketing, identifying your foundations of your brand and then going from there. So Deb, who asked this question, she said, Maddie, I'm so sick of social media. I just feel like it never works. I'm so uninspired to create and never have any new content ideas. When you don't have any content ideas, my bell in my brain that's ringing is that you just don't know your foundations well enough. You don't know your message well enough. You don't know your branding well enough, because truly I could come up with 500 content ideas for you right now if you have those pieces. If you do have those pieces, but it's still not working and you are executing consistently and you're like, Maddie, I'm showing up all the time and things just aren't growing, they're just not working, no wonder you're frustrated. That is frustrating. I would be upset and frustrated too, because you're putting in all this work and you're not seeing anything out on the return. We have to actually analyze how you're putting that message out there. What does it look like? There's a lot of different pieces of marketing, but we need the visuals. We need the clarity of it all. We need, the process of it all. It's not just putting the messaging out there. Yes, the messaging needs to go out, but it needs to be, in the right order with some variety and all of these other pieces as well. So understand that it's not always social media. I think social media is what catches a lot of the flack, is that content doesn't work anymore. Social media doesn't grow. It is harder than it was in 2015, 2016. Don't get me wrong. I wish it was still 2015 on social media, because I would be a cajillionaire, because it would be really easy to make money. Me and you, everybody would just be a cajillionaire, because it would be so easy to sell things on social media. It's not that easy anymore. But it's not social media's fault. It's the marketing strategy's fault here. So Deb, who submitted this question, I would ask you to sit down and say, do I know the answers to those questions that I asked? If you don't, that's probably a content thing that we have to look at. And first things first is, do you actually have these foundational pieces laid out? I call it my MOP method. It's a magnetic online presence. You need to understand what your MOP method is. Otherwise, everything else is going to be broken. Everything kind of grows on top of each other. It's kind of like a linear model, is that we need our foundations. When I teach this in PTP, I have a 4-step framework. It's pillars, presence, people, and profit is the framework that I teach marketing in. And pillars is this foundational piece. We teach you how to identify your message, how to identify your ideal customer, how to identify your branding, how do we create it to actually attract the right people and magnetize people to you. And then we talk about presence. But without the pillars, your presence is always going to be broken. And then presence goes to your content, goes to your setup of your socials, goes to your whole website, your whole online presence. And then we can go to people, building a community, and then we can go to profit, to launching and passive sales and all of those other things. This grows on top, but if something below it is broken, it's all going to be broken. So what I would recommend for you is to really audit this. Do you have your foundations? Do you have a plan on your marketing? Do you know what's activating? Do you know what's working right now? If nothing's working, we have to go back to those foundations and really create that. Because if you have the right foundations, your messaging should be strong. Your marketing will land better. Messaging is something that we work on with everybody, because we need to get this piece and then move forward with it. So Deb, I hope this answered your question. If you feel like social media, nothing is working, it's usually not social media's fault. Sometimes your account, maybe you have a bunch of fake followers or something like that. That can be social media's fault. But most of the time, 99% of the time, it's actually the content. And usually it's either the content itself or that the foundations are kind of lacking. And so everything else is a little bit diluted from there as well. I just want to say, I know today is Black Friday that this episode is coming out. I hope your day is sales filled. I hope you feel solid. I hope you feel excited. I hope you are seeing all of your payoff throughout the year. This is really the Super Bowl for many of you. And so I hope that you guys are seeing something else from what we just talked about on your social media. And I'm grateful for you. Thank you for being here, like in the spirit of Thanksgiving. I truly am so grateful for this community. I love my business. I love my life. I love sitting down here and chatting with you guys. And you are such a big piece of everything else in my business and my life and all of that as well. So I am so thankful for you. I know a couple of you guys have asked if we are doing Black Friday offers for my support. We're starting next week because I wanted you guys to be able to fully sit down and really sit with Black Friday in your own business, because this is your Super Bowl. I can't be, hounding you for more while you are also executing. And so if you are wanting to start after the new year, if you're really wanting to dig into 2026 and building those goals, building that business, having all of this built out, we do have Black Friday offers starting next week, kind of a little delayed, but I wanted you to be able to be, present and reflective. We do have a podcast episode coming out on Tuesday that's all about reflecting on your Black Friday, and it's going to be a really good one. So make sure that you show up there. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. I will see you in the next episode. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll see you on Tuesday. If you found today's episode helpful and are looking for more tangible ways to grow your business, make sure you are subscribed to the show. If you want to dive deeper into this topic more, click the link in the show notes and join our completely free podcast community, where we dive into every single podcast topic, as well as give some bonus support and free coaching calls. And finally, if you are interested in getting my eyes on your business to find your hidden opportunities to scale, apply to work with me one-on-one in the show notes or on our website. Remember, it's not enough to listen. Don't forget to implement too. I love ya. I'll see you in the next episode.